Welcome back to another episode of CCW Insider, where you hear about the matches and stories from wrestling's last territory, Coastal Championship Wrestling. I'm Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBelltime.com, a website database tracking pro wrestling from around the world. In episode number 5, I'm talking with CCW International Champion Chase Stevens. We talk about Chase's athletic background, winning the Golden Gloves, working at TNA from the very beginning, and his longevity in wrestling. Chase talks about getting 4 days of training before heading out on an 8-month tour, and he dishes out some advice for young wrestlers that are trying to establish themselves. This is a great interview with Chase Stevens, and it's coming at you right now. I'm talking with CCW International Champion Chase Stevens. Chase won the international title last August at CCW Music City Fight Night in Nashville. He has defended the title against Miami Mike and Alex Ocean, and most recently Damian Wayne just a couple of days ago at CCW Game On in Nashville. Chase, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Privileged.
Absolutely. Before we even get into all the wrestling and stuff that we're going to talk about, you got a pretty awesome background there, a couple of swords and stuff. I want to ask you, what's going on there?
I'm a barbarian, man. I'm barbaric as they come. If you walk around my house, I got knights in shining armor and axes and everything else hanging on the wall. You just have to get the 2 long swords behind me and the shield. But I got 3 doors, so if anybody ever comes in trying to rob me and I can't get to a gun fast enough, they're getting axed with something. So I wouldn't recommend anybody trying to rob my house anytime soon.
No, I was just not. So
I got a title to defend over here,
Yeah, that's right. Well, like I was saying in the intro, you won a tournament. You defeated 5 men to win the vacant CCW International Championship. What does it mean for Chase Stevens to hold that championship and be such a big part of CCW's Nashville production?
Well, the fact of going through 5 men was a feat in itself, but we accomplished it. And then I got the bullseye put on my back as soon as that happened. And, it's been a little process ever since, going through the ranks, trying to keep afloat as a champion is hard enough, let alone staying a CCW champion. It's not the only title I've ever held. I've held multiple titles. This just happens to be the number one that I have going right now, and I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. They say I got a little bit of like a lot of the people I've been up against here lately has been a little bit younger than me. Outside of Damian Wayne, he's in his 80s. But other than that, everybody else has been a little bit younger, and they were good competitors. They just I got a little bit of time on them, a little bit of experience, and they have a little bit to go before they can carry a heavyweight title. Actually, I got it right here with me. Oh. So, to hold one of these, 10 pounds of gold, you got to actually be a heavyweight. And a lot of these guys I've been up against, they're borderline heavyweight. They ain't quite there yet. So, give them a good 5-10 years, and maybe they come back and try to defeat me one more time.
All right. Well, I want to go back and talk about your early days as an athlete. A lot of wrestlers, you talk to them and or you see like documentaries or whatever. It seems like they all were football players and stuff like that. I don't know if you have that in your background, but
I do.
A little bit of research. You do. Okay.
Yeah.
So just talk about your earlier days as an athlete, and I know there's some boxing in there too.
And there is. Man, there's very few sports I haven't played. I was big into sports all through elementary school and middle school, high school. Went in the military, but started when I was 8 years old. I got into boxing when I was 8. Boxed all the way through. Played baseball through elementary school. Played football through elementary school, middle school, high school. Boxing all the way through all that as well. So I would do the after school activities of a sport, and then afterwards boxing would start after that. So I, as a young kid, in kindergarten all the way through my senior year, it was double practices a day, because I either played baseball, I played football, I did track, and I wrestled amateur style. So there's something going on, for every season. And then boxing come there's a little bit later classes. So I was always hitting those late classes all growing up. So I've always been in sports and always, had a foot in the door. I was going to do something in life that had to do with some kind of sport. I just didn't know what it was as a little kid, coming up.
I heard you say just now that you were into boxing since you were 8 years old. And it just pops into my head. The question pops into my head. How does an 8-year-old kid train to punch another man in the face? Like, how is
Yeah.
that?
He gets punched in the face a bunch of times and figures it out. That's what happens. Yeah. So that's many, many punches to the face when you start at 8 years old.
I
So,
guess so.
yeah.
So in boxing, I talk about the success that you had in boxing, because you talked about how long you were actually competing and training and stuff. Talk about some of the success that you had.
Yeah. So I won Golden Gloves. I think it had been 93, 94, 95, and 96. I didn't compete in 97. I just was helping train and things like that. And I didn't end up putting in the application and doing everything I needed to do at that point in time. And I was playing, like I said, like I was a senior in '97, and I was playing a bunch of different sports, and it just everything was getting piled up, and I couldn't keep straight on everything. I couldn't make it to all my competitions like I needed to for boxing, and it kind of took a back seat. I was still training. I just couldn't make all the competitions I need. I ended up being 41-0 on an amateur scale, but I probably had, I would say, if I had to give an estimated guess on boxing matches, I'd say 3,500 boxing matches.
Wow.
Yeah, since I was 8, though, you know what I mean? So it's a lot, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a lot of ring time. I was born for the ring, and when professional wrestling come into the mix, and I got the opportunity to find a proper trainer and things like that. I had multiple people coming to me at different time frames, and it was just weird how it all added up. Because even though I loved professional wrestling, I never thought like, man, maybe I should be this down the road in life or anything like that. It just happened to present itself to me, and I jumped on the wagon and rolled with it. I thought it was a cool opportunity, and I went and watched a show. I'd never been to a wrestling show at that point in time, and I went and watched, and I was like, man, I can do this. Like, so I signed up that night, showed up the next week, and had 4 training sessions. Didn't know, I didn't know much about pro wrestling. Like, I knew like the basic names of moves and stuff, but not like, I didn't know the ins and outs of the sport. And man, I got my butt handed to me like right off the bat. Wrestling. Like everybody says, wrestling's fake. And man, that first time locking up and getting punched in the face without gloves on, it was a little different story. And then getting thrown over the top rope, not knowing how to protect yourself and how to grab on correctly and things like that. Because I only had 4 days of training. I didn't even know how to lock up professionally. I knew how to amateur lock up. I didn't know how to professionally lock up. So everything from the get-go of being in there with the actual pro wrestler and just manhandling me. And how that goes. You lose your first one for sure, and that one was a major loss. But it spiked my whole, made me want it more. It made me want to learn the right and wrong ways of everything. It made me respect it. So when I got downstairs, ended up being Tracy Smothers that I was wrestling, and him yelling at me and from across the room, like I'm mad. I mean, just mad that I was even in the locker room, even allowed in the locker room. And then when I just happened to tell him I'd only been doing this 4 days, and his whole demeanor changed on me. He kind of felt bad, that he took royalties with me and things like that. So he asked me that night before I left, if I wanted to jump in the car with him. I thought we was just going to go down the road. I was going to get another wrestling show the next day, and I didn't come home for 8 months. He kind of kidnapped me, So 8 months with one change of clothes and being stuck in the car with Tracy Smothers. It was a dream come true without even knowing it. I just thought I was going down the road the next day. I didn't come home. So there was no turning back after that. You do 8 months on the road, Tracy, you're a pro wrestler. Like, you ain't going nowhere, you know. So here we are, 26 years later. I'm still doing it.
Now, this was, I want to say this was like the late 90s, right? We're
Yeah,
talking.
yeah. This is 98. Yeah.
So you're just coming off of all these years of boxing and amateur wrestling and things. How do you think those experiences, the boxing and the amateur wrestling, kind of helped you? I know you just talked about how you were at 4 days before you got thrown in there with Tracy Smothers, but how did those athletic experiences help you in professional wrestling?
Man, every sport I ever played combines in wrestling. It all you can relate each and every one of those sports to wrestling. It's weird how wrestling comes from everywhere, you know. And amateur wrestling is not quite like that. Amateur wrestling is just amateur wrestling, but football, track, you know, boxing, amateur wrestling, you stack that all together and you get a pro wrestler. It's the weirdest thing ever. I can't explain it unless you went through the training, you would understand. But it helped me with my feeding, helped me with my balance, being a ring general, knowing where I'm at the ring at all times, you know, because you get dazed a lot. Just hitting the mat itself, you know, you can hit wrong at any time, get the air knocked out of you, and you're always having to protect yourself and protect other people, you know. So having the air knocked out of you is an easy way to hurt anybody in the ring. And this is you know, knowing how to protect yourself and knowing that you're not dying when you're getting the air knocked out of you is one big thing about wrestling, you know, because you fall down so much, you get whiplash, you get concussions, things like that. And in boxing, that's the exact, you get all that. You're always having a ring in one of your ears, and you gotta get up and keep going, you know, like you don't want to be that you know, guy with the glass jaw on the ground. You know what I mean? You're in front of friends, family, you know, fans, and you want to entertain, and that's, you know, it's boxing. It just that, and it transitions over into wrestling so well because you're trying to do the exact same thing in wrestling. You just you're doing it for a lot longer of a period of time than 3-minute rounds. You know.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying you kind of broke in 1998. You went on this 8-month road trip with Tracy Smothers. Now your cage match profile, if people were to go and look you up there, it doesn't really pick up until 2002.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear about some of that. That's a 4-year span there, and we know 8 months of it you were on the road with Tracy Smothers. But tell us about those like early formative years
Yeah.
in the business.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Oh yeah.
It's staticky on my end. Okay. So the cage matches, like whenever I was coming in 98, ECW was like a huge thing, you know, on TV, and Paul Lee was doing huge things with it, and all the independent promotions were kind of following a little bit. So a lot of things were hardcore. Like a lot of promotions were doing 2 and 3 hardcore matches a night, if not more. I mean, some shows were complete hardcore matches. And so a lot of these shows coming in, me being the new guy on the show, a lot of these veterans didn't want to do cage matches. They didn't want to do ladder matches and things like that. So I was always that guinea pig getting thrown into these cage matches and things like that. So there's older VHSs out there. I mean, I've done hundreds of cage matches. Just you got to see the televised versions of them. So I was you know, for Impact Wrestling, I was in the first six-sided steel cage match in existence at that point in time. And when we got to the fairgrounds, I'd never been. I just recently been in a six-sided ring, let alone a steel cage. So when we got to the arena that day, they were still building the cage, so we never got to see it get put up. And the ceiling had a dip in it, so it was lower on one side than on the other. And I'd already come up with this plan that since this is the first one ever, I'm going to do a shooting star off the top of it. You know, watch me, my claim to fame. You know, blah blah blah. You know, and we get out there, and the cage is shimmying, and everything in my head was like, just don't, because if you fall backwards, you're done. It's a concrete floor. You know, there was no padding around it. So as I was climbing up, it's shimmying, and once I get up there, I hit something which I thought was the ceiling. So I look up immediately, and this great big circular thing's pulling back from my face. And it looks like, to me, because I got so much blood in my face, it looks like a flying saucer up in the air. And I was like, what is a UFO doing in here? Like you got so many weird things going through your head at that point in time. And I'm just like, man, I couldn't even tell what it was. It was a boom box. It was a weird boom box that they had rented, for a camera to go over the top of the cage. And I just ran smack dab into it with my head. So as I look up, everything in me was like, don't do the shooting star. So I just did a moonsault off the top instead of doing the shooting star on that one, which, they play it over and over again. And it's still a priceless moment, and then a few years later we do the first lockdown pay-per-view, and then I was like, they had reinforced the steel cage at that point in time, so I knew I could climb up and actually get my balance and turn around without you know a big percentage of me maybe falling off backwards. You know what I'm saying? Plus, they had padding out there at that point in time. They really spiced it up a lot in those couple of years. So I was a lot safer if something bad was to go wrong. So on that pay per view, I can't remember what year that was. Maybe '05. I did the Shooting Star then.
So we're talking about Impact and TNA and stuff, and I think that Impact and TNA kind of kicked off around 2002, and you worked pretty regularly from that inception basically through 2007, I think, and then you've had some returns since then. But tell us about how the opportunity came about for you to work at TNA in those like early years.
Man, the the whole way through TNA was amazing. Because I was surrounded by encyclopedias. I mean, everybody on the roster had years and years of experience, and there was just a few young guys like that was on the shows. So we were learning. All of us were learning from everybody all day long. From 1 p.m. till 11 o'clock at night. There's somebody helping you do something, and whether it be promos or workouts or what to eat, or being a ring general and like what to do and not to do. There's always somebody helping you, and you get years and years of that, and you can't help but to become good. I mean, there's nothing. It's coming. You're going to get it. So it was great, and the people I got to work with, being in the ring with a lot of those top talents, just does nothing but send you above par. You just get better and better. And then being the managers that they help me gain on TV. Being with Chris Candido and Jimmy Hart and Shane Douglas. Three top professionals in the world, even today. And they're by our side. And running storylines with them and hearing their input on how to make us better and how to get the team here and there. You learn a lot of behind the scenes and a lot of politicking and things like that, and how to actually sit in a meeting and figure your career out. And it's all just how it's not just in that aspect. It's not just athleticism and things like that. You gotta be a businessman. You gotta know how to wheel and deal. And that was the whole reason for having people like that in our corner. And they really was at all times going to bat with us. The Chris Candido situation is a really bad situation with him breaking his leg, and then we went out. That was a Sunday pay per view. Monday we had emergency surgery on his leg, on his ankle, and then Tuesday we did a TV taping back to back, and we ended up winning the world tag titles that night of him getting in the ring and flipping the pile. And we couldn't get the wheelchair up the back of the ramp. He was in a wheelchair. We couldn't get it up the back of the ramp, so they ended up finding some crutches at Universal Studios, because that's where we was doing the taping at. So we ended up going down the ramp with him crutches. And, I can't imagine the pain he was in at that time and all, but you wouldn't know, because Chris was just a happy, go getter. Like anything they asked him to do, he was ready to do it. Like there was never like flinch of I don't know. He never had a bad attitude. Anytime you seen him, there was a smile on his face. He was lively and energized and things like that. So that rubbed off on me and my tag partner Andy Douglas at the time, and made us like gave us like, I don't know, just that energy feeds, and it just made us so much better in the ring, out of the ring. He wasn't like Chris never tried to change us as characters and never tried to change the tag team. He just tried to intervene and make us way better, bigger stars than what we already was at the time. And he accomplished every bit of that in that short period of time he got to be with us. You know, that it just shows how amazing he was.
It strikes me that in 2001, basically WWE buys up ECW, buys up WCW. So the market has to be, talking from a business perspective, the market for wrestlers has to be extraordinarily crowded. And this is the time where you're coming up and you're trying to make it. TNA launches in 2002, and you're one of the guys that are on that roster.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about you that stood out to the decision makers and was like, let's bring Chase in?
Well, the one thing is I was in the right place at the right time. I ended up being in Nashville. I moved here with Tracy from Indiana. I moved to Nashville with Tracy Smothers, and then I just happened to hear about this, how they were looking for talent, and they were going to be at the Nashville Fairgrounds on this certain date. So I made sure to get on that show. And they did, and Jeff Jarrett and his dad Jerry Jarrett happened to be there way before TNA started. It was a couple months before it even started, and me and my first tag team partner Cassidy Riley as the Hot Shots, we happened to be there and on the show, and we wrestled that night and was offered a contract. It was me and Cassidy got signed. AJ Styles was on the show; he got signed. David Young had got signed. Wildcat Chris Harris and James Storm got signed, and we all, just at different time frames, they would come to us with negotiating a contract with us without a contract in hand, and then we had to wait for the lawyers to write up the contracts that they was asking us if we was okay with signing, how we want to do things. And I'd never been under contract at that point in time, so it was a big step for, well, I mean, I guess quite a few of us at that time. And then it was the waiting game, because then it was when's it gonna start? We signed a contract and it's 3-4 months down the line, but we're young kids like hungry, and we're going, man, did we screw up? Did we, should we not have signed that? Like now we're stuck at home, and I mean, we could still go out and do indies and we could still work. We just couldn't do any TV stuff at the time because we just signed for another television company. So when it started, it was like, man, we was itching for it for months. So, it was balls to the wall, those first few pay-per-views that come in, and you're right. The WWE deal was huge, and that roster was huge, and it was letting people go. They didn't know what to do with so many, with all that talent that they had. And a lot of them was floating over to TNA at the time. So the first 2 pay-per-views they did a live pay-per-view and a taping. And I was there. I was asked to come down because I was under contract, but I didn't make either one of those shows because of our locker room was crowded too at that point in time, and they were trying to fit. Being their first show, they wanted the bigger names on it that was going to draw those pay-per-view buys and things like that. So I ended up having to take a seat on that drive.
Mm-hmm. So TNA in that time that you were there, in those early days, it was like constantly changing. Weekly pay-per-views to television, regime changes. So much stuff happens in a very short period of time with that company. Talk about the learning curve that you had to go through, and then I guess the follow-on question to that is like, how has that prepared you for your career since that time?
Yeah, well, it's because now you can deal with anything, because from one week to the next, like everything changes sometimes, and it was because of the people running the show. Like you still have the same owners, but different people with different ideas would come in. Vince Russo to Eric Bischoff to Dusty Rhodes, and then back to Vince Russo, and then Jerry Jarrett, and then Jeff just trying to run it himself, and then bringing in Dusty back in, and everything was flip flopping all the time, and different guys were coming in, like people that they were close with, and they had knowledge of, that they would bring in and for the shows, and then whenever they're gone, those people leave, and other people come in, and we're the set group of people that got to stay in. So a lot of things would change, and sometimes you didn't know who to talk to about the situation. You just keep your mouth shut and do what's written on the paper, And like we're lost puppy dogs every once in a while, going out, just we don't know where the storyline's going from week to week. And I think that's a downfall of the company at that point in time. But they were trying to get something good going, and it's just the way the ball bounces sometimes, and that's where the politics are. And when people talk about wrestling politics, it's it right there. You gotta know who's who and where it's going. And I wasn't a good politician, and that's where I needed, the Candido, the Shane Douglas, Jimmy Hart. I needed people like that at that point in time. And it was a great learning experience. It wasn't a good one. It was an amazing learning experience because they could throw anything against the wall and we could pull something out of it, and I felt that, the fact that they had confidence in us and they wouldn't let us go. They was re-signing us to new contracts and putting us on TV and not just sitting us at home, which they could have very well done at any point in time. We wasn't the top dogs, but we wasn't, we were always thought of to be put on the show, and even when they were lost and didn't know what they were doing either from one day to the next, we were still part of that group where they knew that they could put us out there and we could perform and keep viewers coming back in, and that's it's a big pat on the back and the way I see things. So I was very humbled to be there.
Yeah, to me, everything we've talked about, from your athletic, career, growing up, as boxing and other sports, and then all this time in TNA where you've dealt with all this, things happening, changing constantly all the time, have given you like such a unique experience that I think that's probably one of the biggest, that's one of your strengths and why you're such a great asset as the CCW International Champion, right? Like you bring all that experience and all that stuff into the locker room every time there's a show. So talk about that. What's it like being this veteran that's had all this experience when you're working with what you said earlier, some of these younger guys?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's not very many veterans working anymore. I mean, it's very hard to, you really got to look and find them. Where whenever I was coming in, there's 19 of them in the locker room, and I'm the only kid in the locker room. Now there's one veteran, and there's 19 kids in the locker room. So they're not getting that learning that they need. The ring time, they can get the ring time all they want, but if they don't know what to work on, you can't go up those tiers that you need to go up. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, the right years that all that was coming in. And I didn't know it was going to fade. They knew, all the veterans knew how things were going to go. I didn't. But I did balls to the wall. I mean, I learned the best I could. And now fast forward all these years, me being in there, I got the promo skills, I got the athletic ability, the professional gear, the everything. Like I'm tan, in shape, like hungry, still hungry. After all these years, I'm still excited. I love wrestling. Like I love my job, and like I'm not bitter. Like a lot of people my age right now. I'm still like humble and ready to go. I don't want to be behind the scenes, trying to run my own promotion. I want to be out there in front of the fans' eyes. I want to be helping these young kids get better. And just because I beat them doesn't mean that they're not good. It just means they got a little bit more time to go. At least they stepped up. At least they were there. You know what I mean? And that's how I look at it in that competition. And if God forbid one of them does put me to the mat for a 3 count, that just means I just got to work a little bit harder and come right back, because I'm not going home. I mean, I've been doing this way too long to go sit at home. I'm ready to hit the road 7 days a week. And I still got that kid hunger inside of me. You know what I mean?
Sure. What do you tell when a younger guy in the locker room comes up and asks you for advice? What's the big piece of advice that you always give them?
Man, usually I'm a smart ass. I tell them to quit. But no, but I'm just joking with them. No, I tell them, like, because they can't get that ring time that they're looking for today. I mean, they can get in the ring as much as they want, but there's seminars out there now. It wasn't like that whenever I was coming in, because I was learning from so many different people at one time that I was like, there was a seminar. There's 19 seminars a day, in these locker rooms, and I was wrestling 7 days a week at that point in time. So they don't get that anymore. They get a Friday and Saturday for sure, and that every once in a while they get a Sunday or a Thursday, but they're not getting that ring time they need. So they need those seminars. They need those people that have been on TV and know what to do. Knows how everything works to get to the top. Those people are who you need to learn off of, and those are the seminars you need to go to. So that's what I tell them. I'm like, anybody that's been on TV, that's got let go, or whatever's happening in their life, to where they're still on the road and they're making a living doing these seminars. They're trying to teach you how to get to their spot. That's what they're trying to do, is be teachers. You need to take advantage of that, and whatever you got to do to get to that state, to get to that town, to fork up that money. If you guys sell your girlfriend or whatever on the way there. I'm joking. Ooh. But you know what I mean? Like, usually these people aren't charging an arm and a leg. They're really trying to help these young kids out, and they're doing it for pennies on the dollar for the knowledge that they have. And like I said, though, there's a lot of seminars out there, and there's a lot of people that still haven't made that jump yet to TV. Those aren't the seminars I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that's on TV that are out there that's still hustling right now, and they're trying to help out these young talents. There's so much young talent out there. It's a 2022 it's a huge year for young athletic, acrobatic talent. They're everywhere right now, and they're all good. I mean, there ain't any others. I see a new move, like, and I've done everything. Like, I have done every move in the book quite a few times. I've made the video games and everything else. I've done all the motion caption and creative finishers and all this other stuff. And then I see stuff today, like in the last couple of years, that I'm like, I didn't even know it's possible for your body to do some of this stuff. So there's some truly athletic people out there that they just need a little stepping stone, and maybe that seminar is all they need to for those light bulbs to come, because they got the talent. They just need those light bulbs. They need that help. And some of the things is who and to get those steps up too, and going to that seminar, that guy he's gonna remember you because your athletic ability, your look. If you got quite a few of the
pieces,
the pieces to the puzzle, if you got quite a few of them put together, and you just need these few little things, that guy's gonna remember you. That you're gonna stand out to him, and he's gonna help you the best he can possibly help you. And I feel like that's the whole reason I'm sitting here talking to you right now, is because I had so many people at one point in time seeing that I had these pieces, and they just kept adding more and more pieces till I finally, got to where I'm at today.
Absolutely. All right, I want to ask you about Bad Company. It's your ring entrant, the song you come out to from the band Bad Company on the Bad Company album.
It's from Five Finger Death Punch. Okay. So you're right. You're right. The Bad Company did do a song, Bad Company, and I come out to the remake, the Five Finger Death Punch version. So Ivan, the lead singer, is a huge wrestling fan, and so's Chris Cale, and they got together through, like, I don't want to say through wrestling, but they're both big wrestling fans, going to wrestling shows, and they connect. When Ivan lost a bass singer, they all got together. I would go and watch them whenever I was in the area, when they were with different bands, and then when they come together, I was like, man, that's my band right there. So I went out with them a few times, like went on the town, had some fun, tell all kinds of stories and stuff like that. And I was like, man, that when they first come out with that song, I was like, that's mine. Like, I'm totally taking that. So yeah, that's my whole deal. Like, that song was created for me. That's what I think. Perfect. All these stories I told them back in the day, I think it all went into one right there. So they won't say that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
All right. So you may have answered this already, because we've talked about so much about your experience and stuff like that. But you've been wrestling for many years at this point. What has been the secret to your longevity? Because that's another piece that I think that probably the people that you're talking to, when you talk about the seminars and stuff, they probably need to hear that too.
Man, stretching. Like, Tracy Smothers was always on me about stretching, and I was a kid, and I was flexible, and I always just thought he was talking out his ass, and I hated stretching. Like I just wanted to go do everything. Like I want to wrestle, I want to lift weights. I didn't stretch. And then as I got older, I started stretching a little more. I started watching the other veterans do it too, and they all smelled like Bengay in the locker room, and you know. Then Icy Hot come along, and I don't use any of that stuff. I never have. It's just I've always been well maintained on fitness or whatever, things like that. And I really don't eat as good as what I should because I'm on the road a lot and it's just hard to eat well. And I don't pre-make my meals and things like that. So you won't ever me and my partner, we used to revolve around Arby's because it's not fried food, it's like baked at least. So anytime we could get any extra that we could take that had an Arby's on it, we was eating that instead of McDonald's, and things like that. But I don't know if that's that. Maybe I get a commercial off of them for that. But yeah, I mean the longevity part, like I really can't tell you. Like I've been very fortunate. Stubbornness is a big thing because you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna get bruises, and you just gotta go. You just gotta go out there. Once that adrenaline kicks in, it's just getting to the ring. That's what hurts. Once you get in there, once that crowd starts coming, your adrenaline kicks in.
Well, I think Chase got that answer out pretty much, but we did have a little bit of technical difficulty there. I only had one more question for Chase, and I managed to get him back for that question, and we're going to get there right after we talk about Alive Wrestling.
Attention wrestling fans, the place to be each and every Tuesday is on the Coastal Championship Wrestling YouTube channel, where a new episode of CCW Alive Wrestling drops at 7 p.m. Witness the hard-hitting, high-flying action that is synonymous with the longest-running independent wrestling promotion in the southeastern United States. Subscribe today and don't you dare miss it.
We have Chase back for the final question. Chase, I want you to send a message to the CCW locker room, all the people that are gunning for you. You got a target on your back. You got the International Championship. What's your message to those people?
Man, my message is this is 10 pounds of gold. It looks good around my waist. I don't feel like I'm handing it over to anybody. So if you want it, you sign on the dotted line, and I'll give you one shot at it. That's all you're going to get. So you better be well trained. You better be well prepared when you get in the ring with me.
And nobody better try to break into his house and take it because he has.
No, that's definitely that ain't happening.
That's a bad idea. All right, Chase, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Really appreciate it. And good luck down the road defending that International Championship. We'll see you real soon on Alive Wrestling, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. I'm sure your match with Damian Wayne will go up fairly soon. So,
I better go up. I beat the crap out of that guy. I want to make sure everybody gets to see it.
Very good. All right, thanks a lot.
All right, see ya.
Well, that's our show. Chase Stevens was a great guest, but I feel bad for anybody that tries to take the title or break into his house. On next week's show, we're going to have the Chilean superstar, Ariel Levy, who in addition to being one half of the dominant CCW Tag Team Champions, is also a legit movie star. Drop us a comment on who else you would like to see on the show and follow us on social media. I'm Minutes to Bell Time on Facebook and Instagram and Mins to Bell Time on Twitter. Be sure to watch Alive Wrestling every Tuesday on the CCW YouTube channel and follow Coastal Championship Wrestling on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you next week. You have been watching CCW Insider, produced by Minutes to Bell Time in association with Coastal Championship Wrestling.